Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by River, the place that I personally go to securely invest in Bitcoin with confidence and with zero fees.
Since we went off the gold standard in 1971, the government just prints the money to fund the war. So now we have these endless wars that just last forever. And so my thought process is that if the world was on a Bitcoin standard and you can't print Bitcoin, that means if you want to have a war, you would have to go to your citizens and borrow their Bitcoin from them. And they're not going to lend the government their Bitcoin. And so all of a sudden, the governments can't afford war.
I am super pumped to cover this. And, there's this rule for YouTubers and Twitter or whatever, social media. And the rule goes like this. Don't ever read the comments. Because as soon as you read the comments, like you're just going to, because it's like 50% of the people are saying, oh, this is the worst thing ever. And the other 50% are telling you it's the best thing ever. And in your case, this rule doesn't apply. Because I've gone to YouTube and in less than a week, you have just on one channel alone, you have over 200,000 downloads on this movie in less than a week, which is gangbusters. And I can't even imagine all the other channels. But the thing that has blown my mind, okay, this is not normal. The little like button and the thumbs down button, 10,000 thumbs ups on this movie. And zero, I don't even know that this is possible, zero thumbs down on a movie after 200,000 plus people have watched this. This is crazy. It's crazy. Let me read some of these comments because the first thing I did is I go and I read the comments because I'm just curious how it's being received by the community and anybody that's watched it. And I swear to God, I can't even find a negative comment in this section. This is YouTube we're talking about. Okay, this is... Anybody that goes to YouTube knows that this isn't normal. I just want to read some of these quotes from people in the comments for people to kind of understand how profound this movie is and how good this movie is. Here you go. Thank you for this beautiful documentary. I can now show it to my family so that they can learn about Bitcoin. Another person, fix the money, fix the world. Here, this person wrote, amazing, amazing, amazing. This should really get an Oscar if anybody actually understood the importance of the message. Thank you so much for creating this masterpiece. And it just keeps going. Like all the comments. And if people don't believe me, they can go to YouTube and just scroll through the comments. You're not going to believe the comments on this movie. So what were you guys nervous? Did you think that this was going to be how it was received? Were you right before the release date? Were you having, night terrors as to like how it was going to be received? Talk to me about your anticipation of the release.
I think more along when we were making it and we were making the decisions about what to include, what not to include, how to drive the storyline, there'd be times when we'd be done at the end of the day with our work and we were like, okay, this is either going to be a hit or it's going to be the biggest bomb you've ever seen.
What in the world are we doing?
I cannot tell you how many times we said, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. But then at the end, when we got it where we wanted it, we realized that, and really, I should let Brian talk to this part of it, but it was the story that was in his head and in his heart. It was what he wanted to tell. I just helped him tell it. That was my role in this process. And he was happy with it. So to me, it really didn't matter what people said. He did what he wanted. He did where his conscience led him. And so to me, that's always a good sign that you did a good job. And I'm humbled that people have given it such a great reception. And I'm glad it helped people because that was the goal.
Yeah.
It's not really the positive reviews. It's the idea that, wow, this helped me. And that was really what we wanted to do, was make an educational film to help people. So I'll let Brian speak to the other part of that.
Preston, I read the book, Thank God for Bitcoin 4 years ago. And, which is the Christian view of money and morality and Bitcoin and how it fits in. And I just was curious on what the other religions said. And so I dove into those. And, after I finished, satisfying my curiosity, I had this voice inside me, like, you need to write a book or tell the story or make a movie. And I've never written a book. I'm terrible at telling stories, never made a movie. And so I just kind of ignored it. And then the voice kept getting louder and louder and louder. And finally I went to Kelly Kelly has her master's degree in writing. She's an education teacher. She knows how to tell a story. And I asked her, like, can you help me get what's in here, like, out? So, I could quiet that voice. And so we hired an Emmy nominated filmmaker, and we started this path 2 years ago, to, tell the story that was in my head and my heart. And what's in the film is what was in there. So to answer your question, like, yeah, I don't even care about the reviews. Yeah, I just wanted to shut the voice up.
That's why it's so good. That's why it's so good.
Could be.
Yeah.
By the way, worst student ever. Worst student. No.
That hasn't changed.
Yeah, he did not want to listen to me at all.
Oh my God. Yeah. One of the comments, to the point that you were talking about how you were incorporating other religious, points of view in this. I read one comment, and I was trying to find it in preparation for the show, but there's so many comments on this movie, I wasn't able to find it again. The person had said, "I am an atheist, and I absolutely loved this movie," which I thought was pretty incredible, because you would think that they would have some type of spin or some type of bias. And I think it's kudos to you guys to really kind of dig into all the world's religions, tie it back to why it's what's being taught in all these different religions, tie back to fundamental principles of just being great human beings, and how that's tied to Bitcoin. And I think anybody that takes the time to sit down and watch this is going to kind of walk away with, oh my God, like, this is really important. Like, as an example, and I'm talking way too much here, I need to get it over to you guys. But, I sent this off to my parents to watch. And after it was over, my dad wrote me, he's just like, "Wow, I finally, like, really understand why you're so passionate about this." As if I hadn't been, like, in his ear for literally years. He watches your movie, and it was almost like this moment for him to be like, "I finally understand why my son is just, like, enamored by this Bitcoin thing." But yeah, let's start with the opening of the movie, because I think you guys I personally like how you started off the story with this Brady Bunch theme. Yeah. So tell us why you started it this way, and what the overarching theme of that really kind of has to do with Bitcoin and your message.
Yeah, so we wanted to go back to 1971 when the Brady Bunch was around, and that's when our money wasn't broken yet. So that was when the U.S. was on a gold standard. And what happened in 1971 was Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard. And so from that point forward, over the last 53 years, our money hasn't been backed by anything. And so that's called fiat. And fiat means by decree. And so the government says this money is worth $1 because we say it's worth $1. But before that, our money was backed by gold and silver. And so we wanted to just show people, like, remember what life was like when we were on a gold standard? And you could have one spouse working, one spouse staying at home, raising 6 kids, have a maid and a dog, and, off one salary. And if you compare that to today, you have both parents working, and they could barely afford one kid. And so, like, why is it so different in the last 53 years? And if you trace it back, it all goes back to what happened in 1971. So that's how we wanted to start the movie. Just, like, if you weren't around back then, or you don't remember that, it's just a little refresher. This is what life used to be like.
You don't even think about how absurd that is today with, that many kids. The dad's the only one working, right? You have a stay-at-home, maid, and, like, all of these things was plausible back then. Now it's just, like, so absurd.
Well, it was normal. That was normal. And if you look pre-1971, the average woman in the United States had 6 babies. Today it's less than 2.
Yeah.
So it's really changed. And the reason, they're not having as many kids is because they can't afford it.
Yeah, one of the reasons.
One of the reasons.
There you go.
Yeah. It's crazy that people don't look to money being the source of it. I think a lot of them are just pointing at, it's politics, or this policy led to this, but it's almost like, yeah, I'm sure the money's broke, but that's not, like, the fundamental issue. And so trying to tell that story, Kelly, I'm curious, when you were working with Brian, trying to extract all these ideas out of his head, what did that process look like early on? Like, how did you guys go through that and the trials and tribulations, I guess.
Okay, so I treated him like I do any of my students who are wanting to write a personal narrative, which is telling their story. And so I said, just give me everything you think you might want to say,
Mm-hmm.
everything that you think we need to include in here. And then let me see if I can't find a thread
Mm-hmm.
to pull through the narrative to unite each part.
Mm-hmm.
And so never ask somebody who has been studying something for 10 years to include everything they know, because it was ridiculous.
It was relentless.
It was but it was all over the place too. Because, talk about mining, you could talk about FUD, you could talk about regulation. There are so many topics. And so I said, Brian, at some point we're going to have to cut some things out and figure out what path we're going to take the reader on. There it is. That's my little mistake there, the reader. I'm so used to saying you gotta grab your reader by the hand and take them through your story. But here you have to grab the viewer by the hand and guide them down your thought process path. And so that was really hard for him because and I'm not bragging about him, I'm just stating a fact about him. He knows so much, just inordinate amounts of information about this because honestly, he's a little obsessed.
Well, yeah, we're all psychopaths.
He gets a little obsessed. And he, for entertainment, he listens to podcasts, he reads, he learns about every facet of Bitcoin and blockchain that he can. So it was tough to narrow it down to the most important parts.
I'm curious of those themes. I'm curious what Brian's favorite theme in the movie is, and then I'm curious what your favorite theme is.
It'd be fun, Preston, if
What's that?
I tell you what his favorite one is.
Oh yes, I like this. Let's see how accurate you are.
A little newlywed game.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Long time married game. Okay. So Brian, I'm going to guess that your favorite part in the whole movie is the anti-war.
That's right.
Yep.
Okay. And Brian, what do you think hers is?
Kelly's favorite is when Natalie talks about millennials and how they've been basically rug pulled because the financial system has really not treated them very well. I think that's probably the most impactful part.
Better tell the truth. Is he right?
Yep. 100%.
Right. Okay.
It gets me.
All right.
10 points.
You guys know each other. Look at you two.
Every time I watch that, I get a little teary. It slays me. It just it was a gut punch to hear Natalie explain how millennials feel about the financial system that they've inherited. Millennials get a bad rap. They're always, people are always sort of bad mouthing them and saying whatever they want to say, but people don't ever stop to think that they are the first generation that will not be better off than the one before them, and how that drives emotion, which drives decisions. And when she said that, it just made me reevaluate any thoughts I've ever had about how people make choices in their lives for experience, because they need to have experiences because their money doesn't allow them to purchase things.
Yeah.
Right. So of course they might travel more. They can't afford a house.
Yeah. There's barely any type of net that they're making because of the system. Yeah. And then they can't store it. And even if they could, it'd be such a pittance that it just doesn't really make a difference. And it puts this dynamic that's so easy because you jump 20 years of a generation in front of them, and it was just a totally different setup for them. And so they're looking at this younger generation, and you guys do such an amazing job telling the story. And by the way, Natalie crushed this. Right?
Yeah.
She crushed this.
Amen to that.
She
was awesome. I can't thank her enough for helping us.
Yeah, our filmmaker was pushing us to have someone that was like a movie star be the narrator. And we kept pushing, and they're like, we want Natalie. And finally, we just called Natalie up and said, hey, are you available these dates? Let's get in here and record. and we just kind of, made the decision. So,
Yeah.
My favorite part was Natalie as Alice in the middle of the Brady Bunch.
oh yeah,
Did you love that? I know. That was Brian's idea. It was great. He wanted, it was fun.
Well, the funny thing for me is just you guys know Natalie. I know Natalie. She's just so authentic, right? She's just such an authentic person, and a lot of people watch her show and they feel like they know her. I can tell you, folks, Natalie in person and who she is behind the scenes is exactly who you think she is in real life. She is just so authentic and just she's searching for the truth like all the rest of us, right? It's just, yeah, I don't know. I was really happy to see her narrating the movie, and she just did a phenomenal job.
we were super happy to have her. We're
Yeah.
glad she said yes.
I know.
Yeah,
And she was
yeah.
a get. She was a big get for
Yeah.
us. So we were thrilled.
Brian, let's talk about the war piece. That was your favorite part. I obviously have a huge bias on this one as well, but from your point of view, why was this your favorite part to kind of discuss in the movie?
Yeah. So just to give people a little history, over the last 50 years, we've had this endless stream of wars, right? And the way it used to be is that a government would fund war through its gold reserves. Like they would pay for their soldiers and their armies and their air force to, their treasury, inside the government. And if they ran out of money, they would borrow the money through war bonds from their citizens. And they don't do that anymore. So since we went off the gold standard in 1971, the government just prints the money to fund the war. And so now we have these endless wars that just last forever. And so my thought process is that if the world was on a Bitcoin standard and you can't print Bitcoin, that means if you want to have a war, you would have to go to your citizens and borrow their Bitcoin from them. And they're not going to lend the government their Bitcoin. And so all of a sudden, the governments can't afford war. And so that's the basic point of the movie is that, being on Bitcoin standard actually will bring us peace and, and hope, around the world. And we will be able to defund the military industrial complex. And the reason that's important to me is, both of our parents were military.
Mhm.
Kelly's stepdad was a colonel in the Army. Her dad was, or a colonel in the Air Force. Her dad's, was in the Army. My dad was in the Air Force. We grew up, in military bases around the world. And, and your viewers can't see this, but, I've been in a wheelchair for 40 years. I was in a car wreck when I was 16 and left my legs paralyzed. So I know what it's like to have to deal with a body that's not fully functional.
Mhm.
And when I see our soldiers come back injured, paralyzed, missing arms or limbs or, mutilated, it's like someone stabbing me in the heart when I see that. Because I know a lot of these wars are unnecessary. And the only reason we had them is because we were able to print money. And so one of my primary purposes in life is to, be an activist to get the governments off printing money, get on a Bitcoin standard, defund the wars, and defund the military industrial complex and save lives. And I think if we could do that, we could have 1,000 years of peace.
Oh my God, I love this. As somebody that's served in combat. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's why we wanted. That's what we wanted to do in the movie.
Yeah.
Here's the funny part. I thought we had already interviewed you, and I was going through everything. I was, where's Preston's interview? And they're like, oh, we never interviewed him. And I he's like, Preston, you need to get down to Florida. We need to interview you right away. And you were enough to come down and let us interview you. And, you told your story, which was very powerful in the movie.
What people don't realize is I had about 20 takes, and I probably 2 takes made.
No.
No, you did great.
I'm not the best at the live
pivotal.
stuff. I'm not.
Pivotal in telling that story.
I mean, you're, retired 101st Airborne Apache helicopter pilot. You saw firsthand what printing money does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Bobby was in this section of the movie as well.
Yes.
Bobby Kennedy was in this section. And I was super impressed with his comments as well. And you talk about this deep state, and you talk about, well, he talked about the deep state, and he's talking about this just perverted incentive structure of printing and really masking how everything's being paid for. Because if you push the bill out 5 years into the future through this I'm going to say slow, but I guess it's a pretty aggressive debasement process. But when it's relative, and I think this is a key point, when the debasement's happening relative to all the other currencies, it almost feels like it's not happening, because if they debase 10% in a year here in the United States, the euro gets stronger, the yen gets stronger, and then they respond in kind, and then they debase their fiat. And so relative to the other currencies, it appears to the populace like nothing's happening, or like the money's not being debased, because they're always comparing it to another fiat, and none of them are backed. And so I thought Bobby Kennedy did an amazing job talking about this along some of the other guests, and it just really kind of shines this flashlight on this war that is just kind of lost on everybody. There's just it's very frustrating for me personally, but sorry to keep going on. Kelly, yeah,
No. I think you'll like this. Our daughter was watching with us as we were editing. It was the very last cut. We had to send our final edits to our filmmaker, and she watched Kennedy talk about the repercussions of all the proxy wars that the United States is engaged in. And if you think about it, Samantha is a Gen Z. She hasn't known war in her lifetime, other than what she saw very little of us over, after 9/11 in Afghanistan. But she's 25. She's too young to really remember that. And I looked over at her. She was sitting on my left, and she was riveted to what he was saying. And you could just see the wheels turning. And then she looks over at me, and her eyes are watering, and she was like, "Oh my God, Mom." I said, "Right. The things that we are seeing today, you can trace it all the way back."
Yeah.
And that happens with all these wars. And I think she really understood what he was saying and what that means for our role as the United States in some of these wars in other countries, and how printing money allows for those kinds of, events to happen. So it was good for me to see that, because I think, a lot of Gen Z and younger don't know what it really is like.
Well, that was the comment my dad said to me when he wrote me after watching it. Was just like, wow, I finally see why the war piece is so important to you, and why how it's being funded. Like, it just is so clear to me now after seeing. And this is another thing, guys, the visuals and the graphics that go with the movie help illustrate it so well. Because I mean, we can sit here and have a conversation. Maybe somebody's driving to work and they're hearing us talk about it. But when you're hearing a narrative, you're hearing an interview, and you're having these graphics that are helping illustrate what you're talking about, it's just so much more profound. And I, just from my personal experience with my family, I've been talking to them about this stuff for years, and it was kind of like it just finally clicked, because they were able to see it and hear it from a different lens or point of view. So kudos to you.
Yeah, we did 2D graphics, 3D animation graphics. I mean, we wanted to make it visually pleasing to people, so to help tell the story.
Yep.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine the pain of managing all that, by the way.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah,
it was a lot. It's over. So
it's over. You guys are,
we're
clean your
happy.
hands. Yes. Yeah. Hey, you've had some heavy hitters in this movie. You have people like Tony Hawk, Mark Cuban, Peter Diamandis. I'm a huge fan of Peter Diamandis, by the way.
Yeah.
Kathy Wood. I mean, the list goes on and on of people that are interviewed in this movie. Michael Saylor's in this movie. You have so many. Is there any interview that you personally really enjoyed, or that you felt really kind of just laid things out in such an incredible way? And I know this is a little unfair, because now you're picking and choosing, but is there anything that kind of stood out? Like when you were done recording, you were like, "Oh my gosh, that person just clobbered it."
Yeah, I think you're fishing for a compliment, buddy. Like,
no, get the heck out of here. No.
Oh yeah. After your interview, I was just like, I almost started crying. Like, I did. I was like, that's exactly the story that needed to be in our movie. Like, so for me, it was interviewing you for the movie. 100%.
You can't pick me. There's no way. I don't.
100%. So, what about you?
I'm embarrassed.
I think for me, it was Rabbi Lapin.
Okay.
Because he was describing, we were talking about how the Bible And in his case, the Torah really explains or illustrates how we are to treat each other when it comes to money and what money is supposed to be used for and in what way. And he was talking about within the Jewish faith that they look at money as a way of rewarding the talents that God has given to you.
Mm,
And so and then within that community, say there's a Jewish community, for example, you might have a roofer and you might have, a doctor. Well, the doctor was at home with his family and his roof is leaking and his wife is yelling at him and he calls the roofer over, the roofer fixes it and the doctor's like, "Oh my gosh, thank you. I could never have done that. I so appreciate you." How many appreciation tokens will that be? And instead
mm,
of calling money, dollars or whatever, appreciation tokens, and really that if you would start looking at money that way, you would see that you would never cheat somebody that way. You would never try to
mm.
steal from them. You would never try to tip the scale in your favor because you would be ignoring the person that God created them to be. And I thought that was a really interesting and beautiful way to talk about how we are to treat each other when it comes to money. I was always taught that a roofer is no less than a neurosurgeon, that we are all people with talents. And maybe that's why it resonated with me so
Mm.
much. But today, we don't treat each other that way at
No.
all. So maybe if we could, and maybe Bitcoin would allow that because
Yeah.
it maintains its store of value, that we could get back to a more peaceful way to interact with each other.
You also have a section in the movie that talks to the Islam side of this and how debt-based money is forbidden. Is that the correct word? Can you talk to us a little bit about that interview that was in here?
Yeah, so Harris Irfan did a great job. He's an Islamic expert over in London. So in the way he explains it, it's called riba. So riba is what the Islamic community and faith call lending money or receiving. Like if you lend money or you receive interest, that's against the religion. You're not allowed to receive riba or like pay interest or receive interest. And so he talks about that in the movie. And so if you think about it, there are 2 billion Muslims in the world where our current financial system isn't compliant with their religion. And so gold is compliant with the religion because gold doesn't pay interest or receive interest. And there was a Saudi cleric that came out a few months ago, and we put this in the movie, that he came out with it's called a fatwa, and it said that Bitcoin is Sharia compliant money because it doesn't pay interest or receive interest. And so now all of a sudden you have 2 billion Muslims where Bitcoin is Sharia compliant money in their religion. And so we show that in the movie, and we build on top of that with some other stories.
Kelly, we're going to nerd out here on the tech for just a second.
All right.
Something that I find so fascinating is when you look at the Lightning Network and you would take Bitcoin. Let's say I have 1 Bitcoin. I want to plug it into a channel and I want to basically be a liquidity provider for payments on layer 2 Bitcoin. And I can collect fees or some people would call it yield, or they would, whatever term you want to put on that. I'm earning Bitcoin by routing the 1 Bitcoin that I have by loading it into a channel and allowing layer 2 to route it. The whole time I'm never lending that Bitcoin out. It remains in my node, and it's this agreement between me and another person to just route it back and forth, but it never leaves my possession. And I don't think we've ever had money that can even do this from a technical standpoint. We haven't. And it's still not violating this Islamic theme of credit-based or debt-based money, which I just find beyond fascinating. And as Brian, as you well know, is this could be our new risk-free rate in 10, 15 years from now, which is also mind-blowing that it's not violating these principles, which, I just find mind-blowing.
Yeah, when you talk about risk-free rate, it reminds me of what Harris Irfan said on the movie too, is that he tells a story about how, God sets the price in the market, right? And if you think about a risk-free rate, who sets that price? Well, today it's the Federal Reserve. They say treasuries are the risk-free, and that's kind of what we base the risk-free rate on. But if you think about it, it's God who should set the price in the market, not like a Fed or a group of
Yeah,
people. It should
free
be
and open.
God. So we should let the market decide what the risk-free rate is. And right now, the risk-free rate's being manipulated by the Federal Reserve.
What was one of the biggest challenges that you guys faced throughout this? Like, if you just go from the very beginning to where you're at right, and maybe it's right now with the marketing or whatever, I don't know. But what would you say is the biggest challenge? And then we'll go to the most rewarding part after that.
So I think the biggest challenge was the time commitment to do
Mm,
this. We spent over 2 years, and we
wow.
did over 60 interviews all over the world. And it was a lot of time. And
Yeah.
then we got, that yielded about 75 hours worth of interviews. And we had to take it from 75 hours to 1.5 hours.
Wow.
Just going through all that editing, picking what we thought was appropriate for the movie, what wasn't, the continuing cuts and cuts and cuts and versions. We went through like 20 cuts, 20 versions. I don't know. It was just, like it's our first time doing this, making a movie, but there's so much minutia that you
Yeah.
have to pay attention to. And it was just like, every time we would watch it, we'd find something else that needed to be fixed. And so the movie that you see today, it's, we kind of graded. I asked Kelly, what would you give it? She said 8 out of 10. And I would say that same thing because we're perfectionists,
Yeah.
There's still always little things in there. But what we were told by movie makers is that it's like, you'll never get it perfect. No matter
Yeah.
you work on that for another year, it may be maybe just a little bit better. So we finally just said, okay, it's good enough to let's release. And like you said, according to the comments, people love it. So I guess it's good enough.
When we think about this and you're going back and you're saying, would you do this all over again? Or what was the hardest thing about making this movie? What would be at the top of the list?
The hardest thing was the time it took to make the movie. We did over 60 interviews all over the world. It took us over 2 years.
Mm,
That 60 out or those 60 interviews yielded 75 hours worth of content, and we had to edit that down to 1.5 hours, which is the final product in the film.
yeah.
And so it was the time commitment that was the hardest.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt.
And
How
I
about
would
you?
also, I think you had unrealistic expectations of what it taught to really make a story and to tell a story because the first time we got the very first rough cut back, which was 3 hours in length, he
Yeah.
watched it and he was so mad because he realized at that moment what it was going to cost him time wise to be able to get this movie where he wanted to go. And I mean, it was a bad moment for
Yeah,
you.
I thought I could hire a filmmaker, tell him what's up here, and he would make a film, right? But it doesn't work like that. Like if you have something up here, you're the only one that can make film. And so I
Well,
just knew that period. So I was really mad at myself for like committing to making the movie. But looking back, like I wouldn't want to have made the movie again, but I would make the movie again if I had to. Yeah.
when you just look at how complex Bitcoin is, and you're trying to distill all that down into a concise turnkey, somebody shows up and they kind of leave an hour in what is it, an hour and a half, hour and 20
89
minutes?
minutes.
Right.
Okay. For them to leave in that short duration and really have a deep understanding of all the complexities of it, like you almost can't outsource that. If you're somebody that actually deeply understands Bitcoin, I just don't even know that you can outsource that information. You have to be in. So basically, it was you knew you were going to have to be heavily involved. Was what it was,
Yeah.
Brian. Like
Yeah,
way
I
more
mean,
involved.
basically, I'm taking 10 years of knowledge,
Yeah.
packing that into 89 minutes,
Yeah.
so that it saves the viewer time, right?
Yeah.
Like it took me, years to get to this point to understand Bitcoin. So what I want to do is accelerate people's learning curve,
Mm.
so they don't have to spend 5 years to understand it. You could spend 89 minutes and understand why this technology is so important.
Yeah. Kelly, what was yours?
I think the hardest part was managing him. By that, I mean his expectations. So I know how hard it is to tell a story well. You have to keep digging in and peeling away layers and getting to the nugget. And honestly, because he has studied for 10 years, when he thinks he's giving a simple explanation, it's not. So that's kind of where I came
Yeah.
in. I am not as studied as he is. I understand Bitcoin on a basic level, but not like you or him or Natalie or anybody else in that film. And so I would say that definition's not going to get it. Nope, we got to dig down again. Keep going, keep digging. And that was really hard for him because he wasn't patient through that process, and it is painful. I get it. You think you've told your story, and then someone comes in and is like, and that doesn't make sense. We gotta do it again. That was hard. He didn't want to take my revisions. You did not take my revision suggestions well, did you?
I did agreed with 88% of them.
No, but you didn't take them well.
Oh, I didn't take them well.
Yeah.
No.
He finally came, agreed to them, but it would take me saying, okay, it's your movie. You do what you want.
I have to brew on it for a
you have
little
to let
bit.
him sleep on it, and then the next morning you
Yeah.
come back, you're like, okay, we can cut it. The
So-
other thing that was hard was
Yeah.
to cut our friends.
Yeah.
If we had people
Oh.
who had just great parts, but they were deviating from the storyline and we had to pull them out,
Yeah.
that was hard for both
Yeah.
of us because we'd be like, no, we don't want to lose them. It's so good. And they gave their time so freely and kindly. We didn't want to.
Yeah, we only use about half the people that we use.
No,
So
that
Mm.
stuck for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the hardest part of Bitcoin to tell in this? Because some of it gets really complex. Like we were talking about the lightning channels and stuff like that. If somebody's showing up and they never heard of this, like you're just not going to understand that right out of the gate. But for the part that you were trying to explain technically or religiously or whatever, what was the hardest part of the story to tell in the amount of time you were trying to tell it? One of the most common questions I get asked from family and friends is, Preston, where do you personally buy your Bitcoin from? And the answer is really simple. I buy it on river.com. Not only can you easily buy Bitcoin with zero fees on recurring orders, you can have peace of mind knowing Bitcoin on River is held one-to-one in multi-sig cold storage, all while being fully licensed and regulated in the United States. Plus, their relationship managers are US-based and available by phone for you or your business. Additionally, River has built their own infrastructure from the ground up, which means they don't rely on third parties to function like other Bitcoin exchanges. River also just created a new feature not found anywhere else called River Link. It allows you to send Bitcoin over a text message to easily orange pill your family, pay a friend for dinner, or send a gift. There's a new standard for investing in Bitcoin, and River is setting it. Go to river.com/fundamentals and get up to $100 free when you sign up and buy Bitcoin. That's river.com/fundamentals. In a world where convenience often compromises security, many investors settle for solutions that do not fully meet the demands of Bitcoin security. That's where the Bitcoin Way comes in. Offering a personalized white glove service, they will guide you through every step of the way to achieve full self-custody, ensuring you adhere to the strictest self-custody standards. Their experienced team helps establish robust security practices that cover all aspects of self-custody, cybersecurity, and privacy. Their ultimate goal? To empower you to become fully sovereign. Beyond securing your Bitcoin, they also offer services such as inheritance planning, Plan B strategies, assisting in relocating to Bitcoin-friendly locations to further enhance your sovereignty, and much, much more. Take the first step to true financial independence. Visit thebitcoinway.com/TIP to schedule your free consultation call. Don't delay in securing your generational wealth the right way. Opt in for security over convenience and protect your future. Your family line will thank you.
I think it is, what is Bitcoin and how does it work? Because it is an abstract idea, basically. And if you are not a mathematician and you don't understand algorithms, how in the world are you supposed to wrap your head around this idea that computers are out there solving a math problem and it creates money that you're supposed to use?
Mhm.
That is crazy. Like if you put it in those terms, that's how the average person thinks about it. And then let's go ahead and add in these magic keywords that you have, and you can put them on a ledger. What's a ledger? You can, I mean, what
Yeah.
is going on? And then it's exo hash. And then we start getting really cuckoo bird out there. And, it's hard. It's an abstract, complex concept. Bitcoin itself,
Yeah.
just what is it and how does it work to pull those down to a level that gives people some confidence in being able to explore it further. That was the
Yeah.
challenge. But I think we did a really good job.
Oh, you did. You did.
You know, looking at how it solves problem. I just thought it was great. I thought that the people we had in there did a really good job.
Yeah. The thing that I'm most impressed with, and I don't think that there was any type of, you know, planning for this, the timing of this movie is so impeccable that it's coming out right now. We're post halving. You're getting all the speculators are coming because they're seeing price action, but you're having this political acceptance. And I mean, I think it was Senator Cynthia Lummis today proposing yet another bill for a Bitcoin treasury. Um, and now you have this movie. So people are coming and they're saying, what is this? What is this? And you have this incredible movie where the distribution, talk to us about where people can watch this. Can they watch it on, their Apple TV, or like, how can people pull this up?
Yeah. So we decided, just recently, like a month ago, this was a for-profit entity. And we decided that, the people that really need to understand what Bitcoin is are the people who can't afford $10 to buy or rent the movie. So we decided that we weren't going to charge people to watch the movie.
Wow.
And so we put it on YouTube. If you go to our website, godblessbitcoin.com, it's on there. It's on X, the former Twitter. We're submitting it to Apple. So it'd be on Apple, it takes them, 2 or 3 months?
Yeah.
It'll be up on like Apple TV, Amazon Prime. It's, there's TVOD, which is transactional video on demand, AVOD. These are all new terms we had to learn, advertisement video on demand, but we've basically open sourced it. So anyone can go to our website, download the movie for free. And if you want to host a viewing or a festival, or, I had someone from London email me that he works with the BBC, and he wants to, present it to the BBC. They'll, put commercials on it. And he asked me if, like we can share the revenue. And I was like, no, this is a gift. It's, if you want to go through you get it on the BBC, you keep the revenue. So we want to create financial incentives for people to go out, take the movie and go out and get eyeballs on it. So it's a gift. It just like in the spirit of Satoshi, Satoshi gave us Bitcoin for free. He could have, patented the technology, could have started a company with it, but he didn't. And he just gave it to us for free. And that's how we felt. We felt we should just give this to the, Bitcoin community for free and let people, watch it.
Well, it's a gift from the Bitcoin community, not us. It's everybody in the Bitcoin community rallied together to help make this film. And so
You're too gracious. Don't listen to Kelly. Don't listen to Kelly.
We are a group. We gave it freely in the spirit of the community.
Yeah, no one was
Guys
paid.
are amazing.
Really.
No.
I mean, you flew down.
Nobody made money off this.
Guys, come on, your time. I mean, I saw how much, guys. All right,
everybody gave, Preston. Everybody gave.
Yeah, well, some gave a whole lot more than others.
That's
That is
okay.
incredibly gracious.
No, in the opening credits, it says, a film by the Bitcoin community.
Wow.
Like, this is it's from the
community effort.
Yeah. We're trying to educate people on why this is the best form of money humans have ever created.
I mean, how many people watched the rough cuts as they came through time and time again and offered feedback? I mean, it wasn't just the people who were interviewed, just the entire process. Everybody in the community gave. So,
wow, that's all I can say.
He gave it away.
You guys are very special people. What else do I have? Is there something that you guys want to highlight from the movie that changed you, or that you think is really important, or that isn't discussed very often? What do you guys got?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing I took away Yeah, I grew up in a small town in Illinois, and we had Protestants and Catholics in the town, right? You were either Catholic, or you were either Baptist, or a Protestant faith, and we had one Mormon family,
Okay.
but we didn't have any like Jewish families or Muslim families in the small town I lived in. So I just didn't know much about other religions,
Mm.
and after talking to Harris Irfan and the rabbis and the different religions, what I realized, and I guess I should have known this, but the Old Testament is those are the scriptures that all the world's religions use. So the Old Testament is what Christians use, what Jews use, and what Muslims use.
Right.
And so the 10 Commandments, Genesis, Ezekiel, Proverbs, those are core beliefs to all these religions. And so what I realize is that we're all very similar in our belief system.
Mhm.
It's just it's you get out later, with the after Jesus is born and all the different fractions. But if you drill down to the base layer core beliefs of the religions, we all believe kind of the same thing. And so that was one big takeaway for me, is that we're very similar. We're more similar than we are different.
But it's interesting because people love to focus on the differences
Yeah.
Mhm.
without even talking about the similarities and what it is that they do agree on.
Right.
And maybe that's human nature that kind of drives us that way too. But I think it's a super important point, is we're trying to rally around something that I think shifts the entire incentive structure of society, and in a way that incentivizes cooperation as opposed to division and divisiveness. How about you, Kelly? Anything that you want to highlight, or that was kind of you went through this journey, this long journey. Anything that changed you, or that you think is meaningful to highlight? And if not, that's fine.
No, I think I probably touched on it when I
Okay.
spoke about Natalie, when you realize that millennials
Oh
today,
yeah.
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 They are hurting. But I mean, I have always had, I guess I've always had a servant heart. I've been in education my whole life, but for the past 15 years, I've worked with students who've grown up in generational poverty. And when Brian talked to me about Bitcoin for the first time, I realized that is something that could help those communities the most. And I think what surprised me was realize, because I always focus there, right? That's where I give most of my time, is in those communities. But when I heard Natalie say that, I was like, hey, open your eyes up, Kelly. It's not just the
Hmm.
people who live in poverty, it is the wage earner. And in fact, it is people with college degrees who are
Hmm.
still struggling. We have got to do something to help people understand that there is a better way out there for them to store value and to get ahead. So I think that really just opened my eyes up to a broader group of people. Kind of like Brian, he realized that we're more alike than we are different. And
Hmm.
it's true. We all struggle. We all need Bitcoin. I
Yeah.
mean, I hate to say it, we need it. All of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank God for Bitcoin.
Thank God. That's right. The inspiration for the movie.
That's right. So, just to kind of wrap up, one of the things one of the comments that I saw that I just really love about this is people saying that they feel like they finally have a resource that they can just hand to a family member, as opposed to saying, read this book, which is usually a pretty big
Right.
burden. Most people have 90 minutes to sit down, and they want to watch a movie. They want to watch a documentary, and they can just kind of sit on their couch and relax. And for me personally, when I have that person, it's like, all right, so give me a resource for Bitcoin. This is going to be at the top of the list. And I guess what I'm trying to say to the listeners is, like, this is it. Like, this is such a turnkey. It starts the person. Everyone talks about like marketing funnels of, like, you're starting outside on them. This is the perfect thing for a person to watch that really doesn't know anything about Bitcoin, and it gives them enough that they're probably going to be very, very curious after watching this, because of how much ground it covers in such a short amount of time. So, we're going to have
And
links in
we want people to use it. We want people to download the movie If you have a platform you want to put it on,
Right.
put it up on your platform, drive traffic to your
Mhm.
platform using our movie. It's open. It's free to everybody to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to have links in the show notes to numerous places where people can watch it. Please comment, please like, share. This is just such a powerful movie, and kudos to you guys. I'm telling you folks, I've seen how hard they've worked on this behind the scenes. You just have no idea how hard they've worked on this. But thank you guys for making time and coming on the show, and thank you for this movie. God bless Bitcoin.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Preston.
Preston.
We are on a path where, wars will be fought over control of those 53,000 blocks to secure that access. And if it's existential, then I believe the financial services companies and the sovereigns, as you've said, will move in hard. And they're not looking at the economic value of a block as the reward plus the fees. They're looking at it a completely different way. They're looking at it as infrastructure.